Today we're talking about Python and Django, not the movie Django, the framework on top of Python. So let me jump right in by saying that we generally have a scale that we consider all languages to be somewhere along this scale. Mm-hmm. And the top of the scale is the really beautiful, artistic, and philosophical languages. At the bottom of the scale is the very utilitarian languages.
Right, like PHP, Java, C, stuff like that.
And it's not dogging them. We're saying that they're really useful, but at the same time, it's not as beautiful, as experienced as working in the more idealistic languages like Eiffel and Ada and Smalltalk and Erlang and whatever. So I think in the middle, a really great compromise between beauty and function is Python.
Right, because on the one scale, on the utilitarian side, it can do everything. You know, everyone's used it for 20, 30 years, and everyone's figured out every problem, but everyone kind of loves to hate on it. You know, C is ugly, PHP is a hack, and, you know, what have you. On the other side, it's like everyone's like, oh, have you used Eiffel? Have you used these, like, really fancy ones? But then, like, 20 people have used it, and
so you're stuck. In all reality, you can't be very productive. So you have to respect.
You run into one problem, and no one's figured it out. You look at the same problem on PHP, and like hundreds of people have done it before.
So another point to make with Python, because we're talking about that first before we hit anything about Django, but I think something really important for us. We have a Python company, and the main thing is that we're able to find developers at a pretty high level of quality. Mm-hmm. You can find developers in most any language, but if you happen to find a Python developer, which is not very hard, then the likelihood of them being higher quality than if you find a PHP or C developer, it's just I've found, and I've hired all of those people. Mm-hmm. I've found that you have a much higher likelihood of meeting someone quality. It's self-selecting,
right? Because Python, it falls into the middle of that list. It's more utilitarian than Eiffel and some of these like really idealistic ones, but it's still like a step up from PHP. They purposely did their white space things. They really thought through the language, and it's not like a object-oriented hack on a normal language.
And it's prettier to look at.
It's prettier, right? So the devs,
less semicolons and symbols.
Exactly.
And
so it's
characters.
Like the devs, but it's not really the default. It's so popular, but the devs they thought about it. They went and they learned Java, they learned C, PHP, whatever you normally start with, and then we're like, what's like a little bit nicer to play with? And so then they went out and they found Python.
And not only that, but they could find work in Python.
Exactly. So it's popular enough.
You're getting a group of folks that like quality, and it's just kind of in their personality. So
exactly. It's like they've gone above and beyond the default, but then are not too idealistic that they're not really
useful. They can't
useful.
be productive, yeah. It's just, there's a trade-off there.
Exactly.
So another point that I'd like to make about Python is that it's actually, and this is kind of a smaller point, but it's a good system language. Mm-hmm. If you're going to write a bash or a shell script in Linux, and you can't run that on anything else but Linux.
Right.
And then, or maybe some Unix, Mac or whatever, but I pointed to that, but it's not. And if you're going to write a batch script over in Windows, you can't move that over, and
you want to kill yourself because you're writing batch. So,
whereas you have Python that can run really well across all flavors of Unix, and it's installed in most Linux environments, and it's really easy to install over in Windows. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of a note to mention. It does bring us to the really important part of this video, which is Django, because Django makes Python much more useful. Mm-hmm. It's a really powerful toolkit.
It kind of does all the stuff, like a framework does. It does all the boring stuff, and so everyone uses a framework, You don't want to be writing database queries, like that's annoying.
Or admins, or caching systems.
Right.
But one of the major selling points of Django is that it's extremely popular in the Python world. So we didn't find some little tiny framework. We're not using a framework that's, it's on the ideal scale. It's perfectly philosophically beautiful, but at the same time, it has no audience, which means you won't be able to figure things out.
There's no apps. There's no support.
It's not like that.
It's not like that at all. There's tons of people using it. So,
and then one of their mission philosophies is to keep the core of Django simple, and simple in terms of, I don't even know if simple is the right word. It's easier to adopt than a lot of other tools. It has the right things that you need in almost every project, and it has all the things that you might need. It doesn't care about those.
Because a lot of times you have frameworks which have everything, right? Anything you could have ever think of, they have built in. But
it's like a Swiss Army knife that keeps getting thicker and thicker.
Right, but then
you can't keep it in your pocket at that point. You're like, I do not need an armpit hair trimmer, you know.
But then the thing is every one of those blades you pull out are like, it's all right. It hasn't been upgraded in 3 years, and it doesn't use the best practice and all this stuff because it was built by the core, framework 2 years ago and never touched again. Django's philosophy is do what every single project needs. Then leave functionality for other people to build apps on the side, which just extend it, and you can install in your project if you need it. So you avoid bloat, you avoid, things just not being maintained for years.
And it's a perfect modular system at that point. Perfect, but whatever. It's
perfect.
It's a good. It basically maintains modularity at that point.
Right.
Because what you get is instead of, if they upgrade Django to another version, they don't have to upgrade
100
60 or 100 packages. Now they can, do the core and update the docs for those. And they've picked a subset of features that they can maintain. And it's proven. I mean, you'll see Django used in very popular websites all over the place. So
I mean, Google uses C, Java, and Python.
As their main
three. They use everything.
Sure, they use everything.
Yeah. But they endorse Python because it does everything. Anything Google's wanting to do on their normal websites, they can do with Python because it can pretty much do anything you need. So
let's just mention a few apps that are popular to give you an example of what you can plug in.
Right. So I pretty much just Googled top Django apps, and I got 33 Django apps that every project needs, right? And it starts with the Django debug toolbar. South is awesome because it basically allows you to migrate database schema changes through your repository. So you don't need a database, administrator because you changed, you added a field to your user model.
Right, and if your developers are using SQLite and you're using a robust database on the website, then
it just boop. It's super simple. There's ones on here like Django PayPal, Django Avatar. They're just someone integrated with PayPal, and so you don't have to. You plug it in, you add your settings, done.
Django OAuth, that's another really popular one that I've run into
Which brings up
a
a cool one is Django OAuth. There's other ones. There's Django Social Auth, which was kind of the older model, but they work slightly different. I've run into projects where the new one didn't work because it had an extra step that the client didn't want. So they went back to Social Auth, which is the point of you can use the app that fits best, not the one that's built in and forced. And yeah, I mean, it goes on. There's just...
And so we're not going to say that these, everything and all you have to do is plug in 10 things and you have a completely new business model and all that. But you do run into...
But yeah, there's...
I would say, I don't know, we probably use 10 apps on every project that I'm a part of.
And they're all slightly different, and they're relatively... They're more plug and play than building it, basically. Yeah, definitely. You're not building it from scratch, So.
All right, so thanks for tuning in for this episode. And like I said at the beginning, if you want to learn more about Bixley, please visit our website.
All right, thanks, guys.